That's when he's ready. You good? I'm good? Okay, we're gonna open this planning board meet February 6th. You join me in the pledge of allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right.
Here too, if you need it.
Got two public hearings tonight. We have just two pieces of work tonight. The site plan amendment application installed two double EV chargers at the Rising Tide Co-op. And a minor subdivision amendment to previously approved Abbey Lane subdivision to divide lot 2 into two separate lots. We'll start with, do we need to have a public hearing on this? We do, don't we?
Yes,
There was a notation in there, says no objections. So no public hearing was necessary, but considering some of the issues at large, probably we should.
yep, I did notify abutters, so it might be worth it just to open it up.
All right,
If
let's
it's
open it up. Start a public hearing for Rising Tide's application for the two EV chargers.
Do you want me to give a presentation first, or you just want to?
Please do.
Okay. So the applicant here is Rising Tide Co-op. They filed a site plan amendment application in order to add the two double EV chargers, which is 2 poles, 4 chargers in the southeast corner of their parking lot at the existing store on Main Street. This is in the C2 zoning district, and the original site plan was approved, I believe, in 2008. This photo here shows sort of the location of the chargers. If you're at the rear of the building where there's an existing ADA accessible spot, they will be in this area, and that ADA spot will remain reserved. And then the other spots, the other 3 spots that is, will be reserved for EV chargers. In general, there is not a lot of change since there's no specific building. I did want to point out that the site plan review ordinance requires retail stores, which this is classified under, to have 4 parking spaces for every 1,000 square feet of floor area. So in this case, 36 spaces are required. They currently have about 70 spaces on their lot. And again, no spots are being removed. They'll just be converted into spaces reserved for electric vehicles. We just talked about this issue with, well, it's not an issue with the parking. And then again, the parking supplied meets the requirements of site plan review ordinance section 1026H. They haven't requested any waivers as part of this application specific to the EV chargers. And then as far as conditions of approval, I'm recommending the 5 standard conditions for projects of this type. And ultimately, and we can talk about this a little bit more, I'm recommending approval of the site plan amendment application of Rising Tide dated through December 13th, 2022 for the installation of EV chargers at their store at 323 Main Street with the noted conditions of approval. I'm here to answer any questions that you might have, and then the applicants are in the audience as well.
Anybody have any questions?
Would this be the time when we bring up that?
When we go to work on it? In other words, we'll actually readdress this
Yeah.
in the
okay.
process of
Mhm.
stepping along like they do, but as far as opening what you want to say during the public hearing, probably isn't the time to do that. All right. We have to have a motion to close this.
I'll move that we close the public hearing on Rising Tide's application for EV chargers.
Okay, do I have a second? All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, so we'll go on to a public hearing for the minor subdivision amendment to the previously approved Abbey Lane subdivision to divide lot 2, AKA 79 Abbey Lane, into 2 separate lots. Tax map lot 4, lot 73-5. Anybody have anything to say about that?
I'll just give my,
Make a presentation on that, Till?
yeah, just so the public knows what
Please do.
we're talking about.
Yep.
Let me see if I can get this to work. Okay, sorry about that. Again, this is for the Abbey Lane subdivision amendment. The applicant here is Peter Brune, being represented by Booth Bay Region Surveyors. They're proposing to amend the previously approved Abbey Lane subdivision plan by splitting. Now you can see that a little bit better. The existing lot that's highlighted here into 2 separate lots, and then selling a portion of the second lot to his neighbor. The existing lot is known as tax map 4, lot 73-5, and Abbey Lane subdivision was originally approved in 2017. This is the original subdivision plan on your screen here, and the lot down at the bottom right is the lot in question. And then here's the proposed amendment to the lot, showing where the existing house is and driveway to be 1 lot, and then the new lot is 2 acres with the small sliver again on the bottom right, which is the part that's being proposed to be conveyed to the neighbor. There's only one issue that I want to flag here. Abbey Lane subdivision was again approved by the planning board on April 3rd, 2017. And at the time, there was a waiver for a requirement of a 50-foot wide right-of-way, presumably because Abbey Lane at that time even was already an existing road. The subdivision in 2017 was actually an after-the-fact subdivision to correct an issue that was identified by Wells Fargo, who was the applicant at that time. This application in particular does not contemplate widening Abbey Lane, specifically because the applicant doesn't have right title and interest to do so. He doesn't own Abbey Lane outright. And then similarly, the comprehensive plan doesn't indicate plans for realignment or widening of this road. And therefore, staff is recommending that one of the reviewing standards for subdivisions, 1037H2, is not applicable. And then for similar reasons, given that the proposal is limited specifically to the division of lot 2 and doesn't contemplate building a road, staff has found items related to drainage and erosion control to not be applicable to the overall project. The draft findings of fact included in the meeting packet and posted on the town's website presume that the planning board agrees with staff on this matter, so that would be something for you all to discuss. And then they have requested a couple of waivers, one of which is related to section 1036C1, which allows the applicants not to reserve a minimum of 10% of the gross area of the subdivision as open space, which is actually required by that section. Given the small nature of this application and the fact that, again, the applicant does not hold right title or interest to the overall Abbey Lane subdivision, staff would find this waiver to be appropriate. Just for your knowledge, 10% of the approximately 4 acres controlled by the applicant would be less than half an acre, which probably isn't worthwhile open space in this area. And then section 1035A requires the applicant to have an informal sketch plan meeting with the planning board. Obviously, this is here at the planning board for a public hearing. Given the minor nature of the proposed amendment, staff would find that a waiver of requiring sketch plan review is probably not necessary, or the waiver is justifiable. Sketch plan review is not necessary. And then as far as suggested conditions of approval, I am suggesting the standard conditions that we've adopted for subdivisions. And ultimately, staff's recommendation is to approve the minor subdivision application of Peter Brune dated through January 19th, 2023 for the amendment to Abbey Lane subdivision shown as Lot 2 on the original subdivision plat with the noted conditions of approval. And then again, I'm here to answer questions, and the applicants and their representatives are also here as well.
Nothing? Nobody wants to speak on this? You want to make a motion to close that one down too?
I move that we close the public hearing for the Abbey Lane sub.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? All opposed? All right. So we're gonna move right back on to the EV chargers at 323 Main Street. Which is really a pretty simple matter. But reading through all the past history and a stir that was caused by the color of the building. A statement that was made. Oh, May. Which one that was made? May 2020. When Neil Gettner and Jenny Began made a motion to extend the deadline to discuss that until May 2021. And that no other permits would be allowed until that issue was addressed. I'm assuming that we're going to have to address that.
Yeah, I think it's probably worthwhile just for me to read the section of my memo that discusses that a little bit more.
Go for it. You want to address that?
Yeah, so
That's kind of what I was getting at.
yep. The site plan application for Rising Tide, as I had noted in my presentation, was originally approved by the planning board during their meeting in December of 2008. In the packet are the minutes of that meeting. In the summer of 2018, complaints were received regarding the presumably newly painted color of the market at that time. And then the code enforcement officer of the time issued a notice of violation, which is also attached, outlining steps that the market could take to rectify the issue. Rising Tide then submitted a request that the planning board amend the 2008 approval by granting a waiver of section 1026V3, which is sort of the standard at issue here. And that reads, building facade colors shall be non-reflective, subtle, neutral, or earth tone. The use of high intensity colors, metallic colors, for fluorescent colors, or black on facade shall be prohibited. And then at the October 7th, 2019 meeting, the planning board voted to table further consideration of Rising Tide's request until such time as the applicants could complete and submit a long-term facilities plan, which they had indicated at that meeting was forthcoming. The planning board put a time limit on that of May of 2020. And then in between October 19 and May 2020, of course, the world was turned upside down. So previous town staff contacted the applicant in July of 2020 following the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, asking for an update of the facilities plan referenced previously. The applicant asked for an extension of the previous requirement to submit a long-term facilities plan by May of 2020, and the planning board voted during their meeting in August 2020 to extend this requirement until May of 21, noting that no other permits would be issued until this matter was addressed. So sort of that being said, issue of this at this point is the planning board's ability to deny an application for site plan amendment based on a known and longstanding violation. There is case law surrounding this issue. I referenced it in my memo. It's the town of Gorham v. Bauer from a 1989 case, which essentially states that Even if the property is already violating an ordinance or statute, that fact can't be used to deny a permit application unless authorized by the ordinance under which the application was filed. Given the absence of any language in the site plan review ordinance to deny an application if there is already an existing violation on the property, the planning board cannot use this evidence to deny the application here. Standards of approval and denial are only those as outlined in section 102.6 of the site plan review ordinance. That would be the relevant standards here. This is all to say, I do want to add that there is an enforcement section of the site plan review ordinance that is relevant for the town. Section 102.14C notes that when the above action does not result in the correction or abatement of a violation or nuisance condition, the municipal officers, which would be the select board, upon notice from the CEO, the code enforcement officer, are hereby directed to institute any and all actions, proceedings, legal or equitable, including seeking injunctions of violations and the imposition of fines that may be appropriate or necessary to enforce the provisions of this ordinance in the name of the town. There's a lot of further language there, but I think that's the gist of it. I have communicated the above issue and all of the attachments provided to you all with the code enforcement officer and the town manager, who have engaged the town's attorney to discuss next steps separate from this review. Your review specifically is limited to the new application that's in front of you for the EV chargers. And given the absence of any language in the site plan review ordinance to deny an application, I couldn't recommend denial here. I had to recommend approval. So a lot to consider.
They're remarkably thorough.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I agree with what you said.
Yeah.
That just makes my life all that much easier tonight. If I might ask you a question.
Yeah.
Being as this is, it is a violation. It's
Mhm.
been deemed a violation, correct?
Yeah.
What part does the planning board play in rectifying that? Because it seems to me that really it wouldn't be our part of dealing with that.
You're correct. Yeah. So as the ordinance is currently written, it would ultimately be up to the code enforcement officer to pursue enforcement proceedings with
Okay.
this or any other violation across the community. And in order to pursue enforcement proceedings, such as fines or an ADK violation, like court proceedings,
Mhm.
you have to go through the select board to get their authorization. So the planning board in the site plan review ordinance actually does not have a role in enforcement.
That makes me ever so much more comfortable.
Well, I think the bigger picture is that we need something in our site plan ordinance to back what has happened here, regardless of who the applicant is or any violation that comes in front of the town. Because to me, it's kind of crazy that you can have a violation, but yet you can still keep going and doing different things, regardless of who that is. So I think we've got to look at the bigger picture and revamp some documents so that this can't happen again.
But for the meantime, this,
But your hands are tied.
Yeah.
As much
Okay.
as I don't like it, there's nothing we can do about the previous violation having anything to do with this.
yep.
Yeah.
I hear you. All right. Well, that all being said, there's really, in my mind, no real reason to discuss that particular part of that any longer. Correct?
So, which is a different page.
Honestly, this is a pretty simple project. I mean, it's nothing but 2 posts. Is what it amounts to. There's very little impact to this.
Is the applicant here?
Yeah.
How is the service being provided to the customers? Is it pay as you go, or is the store consuming that cost? And
We will have the option to decide, and so we're doing.
you probably should just come up and state your name just so that we
Yeah.
make everybody happy.
I'm Heather Burt, and I'm the general manager at Rising Tide. And so the
meters that we're getting will be something that people can we can have it set for which we want. And so we're still in the process of doing research on that. And with electricity prices soaring, it's likely to be something that is a pay as you go,
Yeah.
but I can't speak to that for sure.
And it looked like it was 4 charging stations total.
Yes.
2 poles, 4 stations.
Yes.
Where's your major abutter behind there? Is that approximately where they want to put the dumpster down?
No, they will be actually against the building.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Because when I got my notice, it was like, I didn't really know where I'm on lot at all.
Right, right.
Not that I'm
Yeah.
against it at all, but.
Yeah.
okay.
Good to know, right?
It's right when you go, when you first pull in, go by the front door, it's right, just right on that corner.
Yeah, I got the southeast corner, but I was hard to say, you know, whether this is just a lot.
Yeah,
Actually can't see it from the road or anything else.
correct.
Anybody else got any questions?
I'm all set.
They've submitted a formal application.
Included in the meeting packet for this meeting.
I did look at that. Does anybody want to make a motion on the application?
I make a motion that we approve the application of the Rising Tide Co-op EV Chargers project.
Well, I think we have to
Or
deem the application as complete first.
complete first, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I make a motion that the project, that the application is complete.
Okay, all those in favor?
Second.
Oh, yeah, second. Well, the seconds, all those in favor. All those opposed.
Well,
Louder, louder.
And I really, unless anybody's got anything else to say about that, you can go ahead with the first one.
All right, she had listed 5 conditions.
Yeah.
Should we go through those conditions or? Pretty pro forma.
They're your standard conditions that were adopted in the bylaws. I don't know, the
Right.
bylaws of the planning board, so I don't know that we need to go through them, but I will communicate that with the applicants and they are listed on the findings and notice that I provided as well.
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion that we approve the project of the Rising Tide Co-op EV chargers with the conditions as listed.
No second.
No second.
In seconds. All those in favor? All those opposed? That was easy. Yeah, they're here in time for dinner.
And there's no additional lighting, right?
No, there's nothing else.
Lighting.
No.
No signage or anything else. Anyway, we'll move over to the minor subdivision amendment to the previously approved Abbey Lane subdivision. Anybody here is a representative? You're just splitting a 4-acre lot, that's all you're doing, right?
What's that?
You're just splitting your lot. that's all you're
Yeah,
doing.
just splitting a lot. My name's Nicholas Plummer, Blueberry Region Surveyors. And we're just doing just splitting a lot in a subdivision. It's functory kind of. Otherwise, I'd just draw a line and call it done.
And it's just, it's just 2 waivers really involved in it. Do you,
Yeah, so I think the first thing that you all should make a finding on is the waiver of a pre-application or a sketch plan meeting. Obviously, that's probably not required here, but the ordinance does say that it is technically required if a waiver isn't granted, so.
so we got to grant them 2 waivers. In other
Yep.
words, one for the 10% subdivision for open space and the application to have a sketch plan review.
Yep.
All right. Should we do those both at the same time?
That's fine.
Okay, would somebody like to make a motion on that unless they have some aversion to that?
I would move, we approve the 2 waivers, the 10% part and the,
10% open space.
10% open space.
Applicant have sketch plan review.
Yeah, we don't need the sketch plan review, each of those waivers.
All right. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor? All those opposed? I don't think I really had much on that.
The second lot, will that have driveway access off Abbey Lane or through the existing lot?
Its own separate
Separate.
access, yeah.
How many lots are down there? Just for my own interest at this point. There's got to be what? 12 or 14?
Yeah.
Yeah, the previous subdivision, I believe, was done by the Diudi. Or at least one of the amendments.
That road, is that Development Association?
Yes,
So the road is private. Right?
I didn't think so. It's just into a subdivision, but it's not, there's no, you guys don't do road dues and all that stuff to maintain.
We do informal, I mean, we do, but it's an informal arrangement.
Gotcha.
Well, the road commission.
Right?
No questions? Nope. No statements? Well,
So should we make a motion that it's complete, that the application is complete?
go for it, Jenny.
All right, well, I'd like to make a motion that the application to divide the property is complete.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Neil? All those in favor? All those opposed? I don't see any reason that this can't go through. It's pretty cut and dried,
Right.
straightforward.
Yep.
You really want to make a motion to accept it?
I'll make a motion that we accept the approval of 79 Abbey Lane minor subdivision with the following 8 conditions that were attached by town staff as approved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Good. Get out of the hot seat.
Mhm.
how do you all deal with recording the plans?
You can bring me actually, we need 3 copies, and it's lit. Oh, great, perfect. We'll get those signed tonight then. Thank you.
Yeah, we plan to set the final pins tomorrow, so.
Okay.
Just for approval first.
There you go.
And you need a GIS, some.
Yep.
Information, just a
Um,
CAD file.
A CAD files.
We don't have it on state plane coordinates. Is that okay?
Should be fine.
Thank you.
Okay, you got anything else for us?
I have a couple of housekeeping items. I have
Very good.
now 2 plans for signature and as well as the January notices of decision up for the things that we
How
approved.
about last month's minutes? You have those?
Oh, yes, they should have been in your packet.
Yeah, well, they were. We probably ought to make them. We'll do that last. Let's go with you first. We'll do the minutes last thing.
Okay, so I have the notices of decision for the site plan and conditional use applications for Clipper Ship Landing, the site plan amendment for the Damascotta Chamber of Commerce Information Bureau, and the Main Street Grocery Site Plan. And that's on the last page. And then I have plans that I'll just roll out on the back table here and you can sign on your way out.
Yep. I'll just get my pen.
I know it.
We share wild up.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Is does Rising Tide still have a request for a waiver before us? What's the status of that?
To be honest, I think it's something that we have to verify with the town attorney, because frankly, without throwing previous staff under the bus or anything, I don't think that that was something that should have been able to be done by you all, by my reading of the ordinance.
We never granted a waiver.
No, we never did. We never
Yeah,
granted a
it
waiver.
was a sort of continuance of
Yeah, of a
on- so-
request.
yeah,
Yeah.
of an unresolved issue.
And plus that was well over a year ago.
Yeah, this started in 2018.
I think it's longer than that.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
It's been on that table for a while.
Yeah, so sort of separate from that, the process would be that the code enforcement officer follows up with another notice of violation. And puts a time limit on that, typically 30 days, to rectify the issue. It would be dealt with through the code enforcement officer. If it still is not dealt with in that time frame, the code enforcement officer, with advice from the town attorney, would approach the select board about pursuing further action, whatever that might look like.
Like I said, you've made my life a whole lot easier.
Are there fines? Is there a fee schedule or a fine schedule?
There are
associated
fairly
with-
significant
Okay.
fines. It's daily fine, so,
Wow.
yep. And then also if the town, brings someone to court over an enforcement violation and the town prevails, typically the person who violated the ordinance would pay for the town's legal fees associated with that.
So say that we shouldn't have said or couldn't enforce that we can't issue, that we're not gonna grant you anymore until this is resolved. Say that shouldn't have even happened. There's still an issue at hand of there was an open violation that hasn't been addressed yet.
Yes,
Okay.
so,
So
yeah, to answer your question, there's still an outstanding violation.
And so I guess. Again, and I think it's something that we gotta look into, because a couple of meetings ago, we asked an application about a previous violation when they had a smell of marijuana. What was we gonna do if there was somebody else? Clearly nothing.
Mhm. Right, and in that case, like the select board with a marijuana application has the authority not to grant a license for outstanding violations, but our ordinance doesn't have any authority for the planning board.
Yeah.
That's kind of the issue at
Yep,
hand.
yep.
Yeah,
All right.
So does that stay totally cold?
as far as site plan review, yes. Any violations of, the land use ordinance or the site plan review ordinance, the authority is given to the code enforcement officer.
So we have to look at redoing our site plan ordinance.
Yeah.
And really what we gotta do next is wait for the town attorney to say, yes, you should have it in there, or no, you can't have it in there.
You can have it in there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually fairly, I guess I would be surprised. I was surprised that it wasn't in
Was
there.
it? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So how does that go about? Is that something that has to come from the planning board to the selectmen that they update that? Or is that something from you saying that we should?
So we've already kind of discussed pursuing amendments to the site plan review ordinance anyway. I would recommend lumping that item in with the other amendments that we've discussed and taking it wholesale as a recommendation to the select board. And then the select board could put it on a warrant for the town meeting.
So it also leads me to ask, what other things don't we have in there that should be cookie cutter, if you will?
I was hoping we could talk about that because I've had conversations with citizens who come by about the site plan review ordinance and things that should be included in there that aren't. I think that going through recent applications, we've also discovered that there are things that should be included that there aren't. So I think that we should, not to put anyone on the spot, but if you have anything off the top of your head, I would be interested to know that. I also have been flagging things, that I get questions about from applicants, since I'm their first person that they ask questions to. I get a lot of those. And some of the sections of the ordinance are confusing at best and extremely frustrating for both myself and the applicants at worst. So I have those things flagged as well that are more like organizational or referencing updated state standards or things like that.
Could we have a couple workshops
Mhm.
around it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and invite the public. And we could also. I mean, if we had a planning board meeting without much stuff, we could do it right after the planning board meeting. I mean, that might be one of them, but I just think it would be nice to have at least 2 sessions, not just one session.
Okay. So separately from this leads me to another item that I need to bring up, which is that I have actually given the town my notice that I'm going to be leaving my current role.
I've heard that.
So I have offered to, the short answer is the short version of events is that I have had a consulting business where I do this for other communities on the side that I'm deciding to take full time. So I did communicate with the town that I am willing and able to continue working on a lot of the things I've been working on. If the select board is in favor of that at a favorable rate to the town. So it's kind of up in the air right now, but this is my last meeting in this role. Hopefully not my last meeting in general with you all. I've put together a scope of work for the select board to consider probably at their next meeting. So it'll look a little bit different probably going forward.
I'm sorry that you're,
Yeah. So we should have found you an apartment. in town.
hopefully you'll, I do like your thoroughness. I have to
Thanks.
admit.
Yeah, so I've mentioned that I'm still interested in doing the site plan review ordinance and actually have already started drafting some things that, again, I've run into. And the comprehensive plan is sort of has been my big project, and I would like to continue working on that, but ultimately that is up to the select board to decide. So.
Gotcha.
So what are you doing the same with Newcastle?
I have offered to continue staying on with Newcastle in whatever capacity they are interested in. They have, less work, I think, than De Riscata does in terms of both development review workload, and then also their ordinance was just adopted in 2020. So it just looks a little bit different, but.
So will you stay on until they get somebody, or is that what they're gonna decide at the selectmen meeting?
So I've given my notice that my last day will be the 23rd of this month in this specific role.
Mhm.
So I think they'll sort of decide at the select board meeting what they want the future to look like.
You've done a good job so
Yeah.
far.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
You've done a very good job.
You produce a lot of paperwork, but you're doing a good job.
Yes.
I had to say it. Anyway, I guess, hopefully they'll keep you on, honestly.
Mhm.
Like I said, I do appreciate
Well-
your thoroughness.
But you'll be kept on with these different projects, not as a town planner.
Right, it would be in a consulting capacity.
Yeah,
So
well, I tell you what, these ordinance need a lot of work. There's a bunch of things that I talked to you about, just before Clippership came across, things have got to change in that. The scope of that was just, it's really not what anybody had ever foreseen and really wasn't.
Well, I don't
And
want to,
the-
yeah, I don't want to get into talking about specific projects, but if
I
you
know.
have like ordinance amendments to
It
pursue.
would, that's kind of what it would be.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it could be as simple as, we have maximum square footage limits for commercial retail spaces. Our 30,000 square foot
Yeah.
thing. We could do the same thing with other facilities. I mean, this was 75,000 square feet,
175.
75.
75.
75, no, 75.
But the way it was
Sure.
constructed, it took up, it had all those little pieces
It's still big.
in between. It's
Yeah,
massive,
so
know.
we can, I mean, if that is something that you're interested in looking at, I would like to do some more research and maybe come with some recommendations around like a policy that looks like that, but yeah, happy to look into that for you all. And then if there's anything else that you come up with, feel free to give me a call separately.
Yeah.
Or we can talk about it.
I would like to see something change in that respect. Anyway, that's all we got. Oh, minutes.
Oh, one thing that we need to include is, remember you had mentioned like a different procedure, like a neighborhood meeting.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
talked about that as a group, I think.
So that's, make sure
That was a good idea
you
too.
keep that.
Before anything
idea,
even
yeah.
starts to happen, somebody
Yeah,
comes in, wants to
yeah.
do a big project, we should have probably a meeting right here.
Yeah.
With the planning board, people involved, butters,
Mhm.
everybody else to at least get a real chance to voice their issues.
Right, a big project like that shouldn't be just decided by town staff in
Well,
in the
That one certainly
office.
wasn't, but the thing is that our ordinances wouldn't prevent it.
What's the difference to you between having a neighborhood meeting and the pre-application meeting? Like what are you imagining
I
looks
see the
different?
neighborhood meeting coming soon after the applicant comes to the town staff and says, we want to do this. Because before any application really comes in.
I agree with Jenny that you look at the amount of work that some of these companies and organizations, co-ops do,
Mhm,
it's massive.
mhm.
And they may come and listen to a neighborhood meeting as per what we just went through. And say, maybe this isn't the best thing for us to do, or maybe we should downsize, do whatever. There's nothing ever out there for these people, and they come through with yards and yards of plans
Yeah.
and the things that they've done.
And we might be able to change their minds about some of the things that they want to do, there might be better ways.
Or the
to do it
scope or.
in the eyes of people that are involved and affected by it.
Yeah.
So somebody came in here and said, we're thinking about this or we're interested in that. I mean, that didn't just pop up with the submittal of an application. People knew it was coming.
Yeah.
So before it even started, somebody should have come in and said,
Like,
this is a big project, I would
Because-
say,
Because when we first heard an inkling of that project, the idea was that it was going to be like Highland Green. That's what we all thought it was going to be, kind of, I think, did you get that sense of it? That it was going to be sort of like residential, elderly residential housing of some sort, but not
Basically, it is
this huge,
assisted living. is what it is.
massive parking lot and, huge
Parking lot's
development.
less massive than the building, but.
Yeah.
It's, the scope of the building and not to mention the location. I mean, I still think if they pushed that thing 300 feet back. And although it would have impacted some wetlands back there, the impact on the total wetlands wouldn't have been as dramatic. As having it on the crest of that hill.
Well, they already said they want to expand in the future.
Well, I'll tell you what.
I don't think it's appropriate for us to talk about projects in this level of detail when the applicants
So
are.
what's the difference between a neighborhood meeting and a public hearing? Other than the process has already started for a public hearing.
Right. So, I mean, that's kind of what I'm getting at is like a neighborhood meeting to me in previous places I've worked is like an opportunity for the applicant before they've even hired an engineer to come in and have a very informal conversation with abutters and the directly impacted neighborhood. Whereas our pre-application requirements are requiring them to already come with a fairly fleshed out plan.
Yeah.
And once you have a public hearing, it sets in motion of the timeline. You have
Yes.
to-
Right.
To a decision.
Right.
No, I'm all for it.
Yep.
And who knows, it's all water on the bridge right now, but whatever. So anyway, let's get the minutes done, and then we can all
Okay.
go home and have dinner. Anybody read the minutes?
I'm gonna recuse. Most of all of that stuff was,
Okay.
I wasn't involved in.
Anybody want to make a motion on the minutes?
Well, I just have one thing about the minutes. It's kind of, I know I had a terrible Zoom connection.
A what?
And I thought, I didn't, at the final vote on the project, I actually didn't really mean to vote in favor of it. You know what I mean? I thought we were voting on, was the project complete, the application complete? I didn't know we were on the final vote. But it doesn't really matter because I'm just saying
Okay,
that I was going to vote nay, but it doesn't, in the end, the result is the same. I just wanted to say that because I just had a complete meltdown of the Zoom.
mhm.
Mhm.
And then when I got on, there was a vote, but I sort of had missed this, like, it was just chaotic from my end, not your end.
I'm not a fan of Zoom meetings, believe me. That Zoom stuff, when we were doing that on a regular basis,
Yeah.
no thanks. I'd much rather sit here and catch COVID.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I'm not afraid of it anyway, so, whatever.
I won't put that in the minutes.
What?
I think we're still recording, so.
All right.
What do you got if I'm gonna sit
We
you?
accept the minutes as submitted.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second, yeah.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you. Now, do I have a motion to close this meeting?
I make a motion that we close this meeting.
Although, second.
Second.
Well, the second, so all those in favor? All those opposed? Okay. We're gonna get out of here pretty early tonight.